Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Dr. M.C. Gupta from PGI, Rohtak, Haryana. I bring greetings from my institute for all of you. And I'm going to talk on the topic of audit of antimicrobial uses. And I think we need to underline here two words. One is audit and second is antimicrobial. And I would like to discuss my talk in three formats. First is informal part, then semi-formal, and then the formal presentation per se. Because this is something we really need to understand. So when we started using antibiotics and modern era of chemotherapy started in late 30s and early 40s, there can be no question that we all agreed that these were the magic drugs. And when penicillin was discovered, it was labeled as that it is a God sent. And millions and billions of lives, they have been saved till today. But the question is, जैसे किसी को कुबेर का खजाना समझते हैं आप? ये कुबेर का खजाना मिल गया, लेकिन यदि आदमी यूज करने वाला ठीक नहीं है, तो वो खजाना ज़्यादा देर चलेगा नहीं और खाली हो जाएगा, चाहे कुबेर का है. No, that is precisely what happened to the antimicrobials. These wonderful magical drugs, which were saving millions and millions of people, by using them, overusing them, abusing them, and doing whatever which came to our mind, we have really made the antimicrobials, and in fact people have already started talking of post-antibiotic era. I hope you can see the implications. Post-antibiotic era means that we are over with the antibiotics because they are not working anymore, so we are looking for something else, which possibly, historically, maybe 20 years down the lane, we'll be saying post-antibiotic era. And if we are lucky and fortunate, something else would come, which probably would be some kind of substitution or replacement. So we have done wonderfully bad when it comes to use of antimicrobials. And the second word is audit. Audit means हिंदी में इसको कहें तो हिसाब किताब रखना. हिसाब किताब कब रखना पड़ता है? When you are not doing the things right. And that is why you need the audit. Not only of antibiotics, in fact, all medicines, prescription medicines or other medicines, we should go for the audits. But since the antimicrobials are the most misused and abused drugs, we really need an audit. Audit, in simple words, means making yourself accountable. And the problem has been at our end that we have done what we felt like as per our whims and fancies, and we have never made ourselves accountable for our actions. The government thought of having an action. I'm sure few of the people who might be involved into this kind of thing, there came a Schedule HX. In Schedule HX, I went through the provisions. And for prescribing a wrong antibiotic, they had some provisions that a doctor could be put behind the bars for a period of 1 to 2 years, and there could be huge amount of fines going right up to 2 lakh of rupees. And no wonder everyone started making hue and cry. ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? Antibiotic drugs prescribe करने के लिए क्या जेल हो जाएगी? Well, maybe the consequences or the implications of that particular schedule were not really good. जेल में तो नहीं डाल सकते, but ऐसी feeling जरूर होनी चाहिए. That if someone is misusing these wonderful drugs, some kind of accountability and penalties, they have to be there. And needless to say, this schedule never came off. It came into being, people read it, and then it was scrapped because it was not acceptable, obviously, to all the clinicians and doctors. So with this background, I would like to, so I'll be talking the technical part, and there are lot many things which I'll be liking to cover, but time given is short. I think morning restrictions are not there, but now post-noon session, some restrictions are there, so I'll try to finish it as quickly as I can. So Robert Koch, way back, he said bacteria are the smallest but most dangerous enemies of mankind. And at that time the statement was made, and probably we were very strong at that time. And now we are fully compromised. In fact, this statement is more true in today's scenario. That bacteria, the small single cell shapes, not even having a nucleus, okay? They are fighting it out with us, who are having millions and millions of cells, And see the beauty of it, they are better armed than we are. And the situation is really bad. So antibiotic resistance as a phenomena in itself is not surprising, nor is it new. It is, however, newly worrying because it is accumulating and accelerating while the world's tools for combating it decrease in powers and numbers. Just see, by the year 2050, deaths from the drug-resistant infections are set to skyrocket, and if you look at the numbers of the major killers, it's likely to be number one. If the present scenario continues and we are not going to find good answers, then these are going to be, infectious diseases are going to be number one killers, much more than the cancers, diabetes, and such kind of problems, which are today labeled as the major killers. And when it comes to antibiotic development, it has been dwindling. Start from 1983-87, go up to 2008-9, the numbers are significantly coming. Well, there is little upward side to it now. From 13 to 17, we have little more number of molecules which are in the pipeline. And the latest research which I made says that there are a total of 51 antimicrobial molecules in various stages, that is phase 1, 2, 3. How many of them are going to be successful, we do not know. So likelihood is, if we follow the principle of that, in fact, one drug out of 10,000 is likely to become successful, but if it is already in clinical trials, so even if I take 10% of it, we are not likely to have 5 to 6 more antibiotics in our armamentarium. So things are not really good. My idea here is not teaching you resistance, what we can do about resistance and how we can make ourselves accountable, but I just want to give you a small background into this. There can be multitude of factors which lead on to antibiotic resistance, drug-related, environmental factors, patient-related, prescriber-related. So, drug-related factors, patient-related factors, and this is the most important. In fact, we are the active partners when it comes to antibiotic resistance. So, the microbes and the clinicians, they are supposed to be partners when it comes to resistance. And the reason is simple, that they have not been doing what they should be doing. And in fact, for me, it's always a painful situation when we are talking to each other. The pharmacologist speaks, the pharmacologist listens. In fact, this hall should have been full of clinicians. They need to know, because we are the people who can teach them, but we are not the prescribers, right? It is the prescribers who need to know that how they are going to make themselves accountable, but we can help them out at least. So, this is, I very fondly say, we have been winning a battle here and there, but if we look at the larger perspective, we have been losing the war to the microbial organisms. In antimicrobials, we went into dynamic research, we found out the new antimicrobial agents, we started using them widespread use. I mean, like you change your mobile every 4 months, like you change your TV every 4 months, we fancy for the newer drugs also. The moment a pharmaceutical company introduces a new antimicrobial, whether it is indicated or not indicated, we start using it left and right. And in no time, it becomes widespread use, overuse, misuse, abuse. And this, in no time, a wonderful antimicrobial drug almost comes to naught, because most of the organisms, within few months of its use, they start becoming resistant to it. And this leads on to increased cost of medical care and furthermore increasing need for newer antimicrobials, and then pharmaceutical company gets a hand that they can pump into the market poorly researched molecules. So, alright, so these are some cartoon clips, but they are just basically to show you that what we have been doing to our drugs. Antibiotics, first, we don't choose them rightly. Our empirical choice is normally very, very poor. Then it comes to de-escalation therapy. After we have the culture and sensitivity reports, half of the times we do not do it. Either we tend to overuse the antibiotics, or we tend to underuse them, or prescription errors are there. If the prescription error bhi nahi hai, so then I think lack of instructions is there. But the way we prescribe and the way we feel responsible for our prescriptions, it is awful. This is an example of poor instruction. By any chance, have you been rubbing the Viagra on your head and swallowing the Rogaine? This aptly describes the instructions the way they are given to the patient. And then we want to be ensuring compliance, and we want to prescribe 20 medicines. Patient finds it difficult, we find the answer. See the size of the capsule. All your medications are put into one convenient dose. Underline convenient, please. Look at this email from my doctor. I mean, where did he even get that font? Doctors are known for writing awfully bad. I mean, it is very well known, proven by research. A doctor, you take his own prescription back to him and ask him to read it. Most of the times, they are not able to. That's correct, doctor. He claims that the instruction said to squeeze the toothpaste from the bottom. So, wonderful compliance with the instructions. So, that was the informal or semi-formal part, you can say. And with that, I really start into my talk. Prescribing practices of practitioners, they are not regulated at all. Branded drugs, everyone fancies for the branded drugs, but now government is trying to do something that by which generic medicines are prescribed, but then in India, you make the policies and then you take them off. I mean, there were some instructions from the MCI, and then we find that those instructions have been taken back. So we are back to square one. More number of medicines. Most of the doctors, fancy for polypharmacy. Analgesics, antibiotics, and multivitamins, they are used absolutely indiscriminately. Instructions for use are invariably unsatisfactory. In fact, I'll go a step further. Most of the times, most of the doctors, they don't give any instructions, they leave it to somebody else. And of course, lack of concern for economics. And in fact, our patients are equally bad. I mean, if you write a tablet which costs you 25 naira paisa and total cost of treatment is 5 rupees, the general connotation by the patient is also कि बड़ी घटिया सी कोई दवाई लिखी है and chances are वो ठीक नहीं होगा. यदि मार्केट में पूरी मार्केट का सर्वे करने के बाद उसको 2 घंटे के बाद दवाई मिले और उसकी कॉस्ट हो 5,000 रुपए, well then patient feels very impressed and happy with the doctor that he has written me something which is absolutely wonderful and fantastic. So these are beautiful paradoxes which spoil the whole story. Why do we want to assess the prescriptions? Because we want to follow good medical practice guidelines. Prescribing is most common intervention across all sectors. In fact, it is said and felt that if a doctor doesn't give a prescription, the visit of the patient is considered incomplete. I mean, look about it. You are a private practitioner. बाहर से 500 रुपए का पर्ची कटा, पेशेंट अंदर आ गया आपके पास और आपने उसको कहा कि आप बिल्कुल ठीक हैं, you don't need anything. Patient does not feel happy about it. He feels you don't do a thing. So he goes to the next person, pays another 1,000 rupees and gets a lengthy prescription, and he feels it is his money's worth. I mean, you want to get a certificate that you're healthy, and when the doctor says that there's nothing wrong with you, you don't want to believe him. Another paradox. Significant part of doctors' clinical care and most common therapeutic approach offered to the patients. Millions of prescriptions are dispensed daily, and challenge of rational use of medicine due to complexity of medical care, treatment at extreme of ages, and critically ill patients complicates it further. High proportion of medication errors, lack of electronic prescribing systems. So these are some of the common concerns that why we must make ourselves accountable or audit our prescriptions. So technically, the definition of a prescription audit is, it's a systematic process of looking at one's own practice and critically analyzing it to improve patient care. It compares the current practice with the best practice standards and measures how well the current care conforms to clinical policies and guidelines. To simplify it, this basically means that we should have some kind of standard treatment guidelines like what has been discussed. So there should be some standard guidelines or hospital antimicrobial prescribing policy, And when we do the prescribing, we should collect the prescriptions, try to chart out what we have done, match it with the guidelines, and that is what truly means an audit. If there is a big gap, that means our practices are unhealthy, and we really need to be careful about it. So prescription auditing as an activity, it is basically a vigilance activity to reduce burden of disease due to irrational prescribing and medication errors. It's a process to assess, evaluate, and improve patient care in a systematic way to measure current practice against a defined and desired standard practice, and it forms part of clinical governance to safeguard a high quality of clinical care. So what are the aims of an antimicrobial audit? It promotes awareness of good antibiotic prescribing practices, when to prescribe, what to prescribe, and for how long. Because these are the important questions when it comes to antimicrobial usage. Collect data on antibiotic prescribing and promote good record keeping, provide information about the effectiveness of a service, and highlight the problems and help with the solutions. So this is what we are looking at. So the goal of an antibiotic audit is to improve the quality of antimicrobial treatment, reduce the risk of inadequate and inappropriate treatment, and thus improve the safety and quality of patient care, and significantly reduce the emergence and spread of antimicrobial resistance. So who should perform antimicrobial audits? It has to be teamwork. Clinical microbiologists, infectious disease clinicians, clinical pharmacologists, clinical pharmacists. These are the main stakeholders, but you can have more number of clinicians who can participate in such kind of exercise. How to perform an audit? Prior to initiation of an audit, selected antibiotics to be chosen based on any increment of usage or based on data on susceptibility of the organisms against selected antimicrobials. There has to be a predetermined criteria which would be set and agreed upon, which includes approved indications and utilization patterns. Because I said right in the beginning that when we use the word audit, audit is matching your practices with the standard guidelines which have been framed by the experts. Okay? Any deviations based on agreed predetermined criteria, they must be communicated, discussed and approved, and any reasons of deviations, they must always be documented. So this is the beginning, that first how would you make those standards? And in fact, to make it simplified, this is how. Audit standards, we tend to follow what is known as SMART criteria. S starts for specific. Specific means it can't be widespread. It has to cover one topic only. M is for measurable, that there is some kind of tool or instrument by which we can measure it in a practical way. A is achievable, that it should not be that it's not feasible. You make a criteria which is so complicated that you cannot really document it and make anything worthwhile out of it. R is relevant, which is very important, and it's important not only for the patients, it is for the doctors as well, and there should be a reasonable time scale, that it can be measured within a reasonable period of time, because time is always of essence. If an audit takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then it's a delayed justice in fact, and delayed justice is no justice. Okay? Antibiotic audit criteria, justification of the prescription. That should be first thing. Is the criteria for infection met? Is there an indication for the antimicrobial drug to be used? And when it comes that, okay, there is justification and it follows the criteria for infection, then the problem happens with the choice of the drugs. Is it the best effective alternative? Is it the less toxic alternative? Is it the less expensive alternative? And is it the narrow spectrum alternative when we are talking of definitive treatment, post-culture and sensitivity? Once we have chosen the drug, then it changes on to dosing, route of administration. And then a very important question always in the clinical setup is, when do you go for what is known as switch therapy? Switch therapy is you are treating a critical infection with intravenous antimicrobials, and when patient responds nicely and your GIT is functioning normally, then you must switch on from intravenous to oral. And then of course, with most of the infections, duration of treatment and timing is always very, very important. There are few infections which will need 5 days of treatment. There are few which will need 15 days of treatment, like typhoid fever. Then you talk of tuberculosis, which you'll be discussing in months. So you really, vis-a-vis the infection, we have to match it with the right duration. And if it is surgical prophylaxis, how long or short it should be. If it is empirical therapy, how long it should be, and how long should be your definitive therapy. So these are some of the important questions which need to be covered when we are going through the audit process. So what are the targets for antimicrobial audit? It is done for either a specific antibiotic or a group of antimicrobials, usually of the same class. We must find out infections with selected microorganisms with a particular resistance pattern. It should target a specific disease. It should target a selected patient population. If these things are quite variable, then it's not really possible to go for a good audit. So audit criteria has to be defined in a specific group, whether it's a disease or a drug or an organism or a population. So we have to be specific on that. What are the outcome parameters of antimicrobial audit? Clinical parameters are like we should measure because of the infective illness, what is the morbidity, mortality, or whether a clinical cure happens, microbiology cure happens. These are some of the clinical parameters which should be accounted for. About surrogate parameters, if there is a biochemical marker or functional or anatomic or radiologic, there are so many changes which we can discuss along with. So these would constitute your surrogate parameters. And then of course the process or the outcome measures like reduction in the use of antibiotics, reduction in cost, change in resistance patterns. So these are your parameters, clinical parameters, surrogate parameters, and outcome measures. What are going to be your sources of data for this audit? You can compare with the patient notes, you can interview the patient or you can interview the staff, you can formulate questionnaires, you can go into what are the current practices, and then of course the antibiotic prescription policies, which in fact should be a major tool which should be available in each and every hospital. But unfortunately, most of the hospitals, which may be even good hospitals of national repute, they may not be having a working antibiotic policy of the hospital. And once we have done that, we must always have the feedback. Why it is important? Because there must be certain lacuna. Then we change our practices. And once we change the practices, we have to know, is it working now? So reassessment is always going to be of essence. So in order to ensure the success of the program, a two-way system or communications, they have to be established within the institution. Mode of feedback can be through the email, letter to the heads of units, to the individual prescribers, newsletters or bulletins, presentation at ward or unit meetings, presentation at drugs and therapeutic committees. This is another important thing. In fact, these are the people who should be doing the prescription auditing, but unfortunately again, most of the hospitals, they do not have drugs and therapeutic committees. If at all they have, it's on papers. They are not functional drugs and therapeutic committees. If they will be doing their job, then prescription practices, they definitely can be improved. And in fact, this can reduce the cost, certainly, because you may be buying many medicines for the hospital, which truly may not be desired. And against that, there may be many which should be available, and they are not. And we should not mind, we do the audit, then follow the practices again, then do the re-audit. Because re-audit helps in completing the audit cycle. It's needed to check whether the changes have made any difference in the patient care. And of course, it should have the same design as the original audit, because if the design is changed, then you can't compare the previous outcomes. So this in fact is a whole cycle which is known as the audit cycle. So you choose the topic, agree on the objectives, review the evidence, compare with the set standards, decide the data strategy, observe practice and collect data, analyze your findings, discuss findings, make changes, and once the changes have been made, then go for re-audit and the whole circle starts again. So this is known as an audit cycle which is mandatorily to be followed when we are going for any prescription audits and specifically for the antimicrobial audit. So if you are doing such a massive exercise, you have to have some benefits. So those benefits are reduction in number of antibiotics prescribed, reduction in number of inappropriate prescriptions, improvement in the accuracy of antibiotic doses, frequency and duration of regimens, improvement in patient management and safety, reduction in prescribing costs by reducing unnecessary prescriptions, making the most efficient use of antibiotics, and reducing polypharmacy. So these are some very important benefits if you make yourself accountable. And in fact, in audit language, there are two words which we use. One is internal audit, second is external audit. And this, what I am talking is a kind of internal audit, that we are making our own system accountable. And of course, I mean, tomorrow there may be something, if things go on like this, that you might have to hire an outsourced agency who are the masters of antimicrobial audit. They can come and audit your hospital practices, and they can come really heavy that the situation is really grave and this needs drastic changes. So tomorrow outsourcing or external audit may be possible, but today we are talking of internal audit, making our own selves accountable. And these are the tools. I mean, a very simple one. You just try to fill up this table and you will know about it. So this is rapid cycle analysis, preferred antibiotics audit tool, and very simple question. Number one, you write the name of the antibiotic, for which condition it has been prescribed, what is the age of the patient, what is the dose you have chosen, what is the duration, why it has been preferred, is there justification, is it correct? Very simple questions, and this is a very simple tool for making the assessment as far as antibiotic audit is concerned. And after you have done it, you analyze the findings, and now you are going to ask yourself questions. What were your results? Is there room for improvement? How will I know a change is an improvement, and what changes could I test and repeat the audit? So this is one very simple tool which can be used by anyone who wants to do a simple antibiotic audit. Then this can be a little more elaborate. There is an audit recording form, but there is a list of questions, and there is a list of the number of antimicrobials, and you just have to answer these questions, and at the end of it, it gives you the total scenario, and you can really comment after going through the data that what kind of practices are desired practices and what are the practices which you are getting yourself into, and if there is a discordance, this discordance would mean that we have been doing a bad job. So these are the specific toolkits which are available. Target antibiotic toolkits. Target stands for treat antibiotics responsibly under guidance with background knowledge and tools, of course. These are developed by Antimicrobial Stewardship in Primary Care, UK, in collaboration with NICE and RCGP guidelines, and these are for the use of primary care clinicians, and these audit toolkits are available for various situations. In fact, if the moment you put on internet your query that you want to know about target antibiotic toolkit, you will find lots of information, and you can learn a lot about how to go for an antimicrobial audit. And once you have done the audit, there should be writing up of the audit, because that is how you prepare your report. And the standard elements for an audit write-up would be a reason for choice, with what aims, what is the criteria chosen, what are the standards set, preparation and planning, the methods, data collection, changes to be evaluated and devising an action plan, then data collection, results compared against the standard guidelines, and then lastly concluding that what is the summary, and again we are looking for agreement or disagreement between the two. So to conclude what I was talking of the audit, physicians' prescribing patterns have an important impact on antibiotic use, which I think I have given you already enough material on that. Growing antibiotic resistance is a serious threat to the effectiveness of the antibiotics, and I could not have emphasized it more than what I tried to say, that we, as on today, today's 19th of November, situation is dismal. Okay, we are losing the war. I'm not saying that situation is hopeless. What I'm just trying to say is, jab jago tabhi savera. This is time that we wake up to the problem and try to be more logical, try to be more rational, try to be doing more introspection as far as antimicrobial prescribing is concerned. Resistance can be curbed by limited and appropriate use. I mean, some of the antibiotics you should treat like Brahmastra. I'm sure all of you know about. And Brahmastra, people used to say, if it goes, it will destroy the world, only then it will come back. And there are certain group of antibiotics which should be reserved armamentarium, that you unleash those antibiotics when you feel that you are dealing with a life-threatening situation. You can't prescribe piperacillin tazobactam combination for sore throat. If you do something stupid of that kind, that is what we are paying a heavy price for. We don't have to fancy always for new things. Old things can be as good, And of course, you have to match your antibiotic choice with a disease and condition. If organism is susceptible, it is responding to amoxicillin, well, why do you have to go for a higher one? Why do you have to give meropenem for that or ferropenem for that? But since ferropenem has been recently introduced, people fancy, okay, let every patient come, 400 rupees per tablet, everyone is happy, the pharmaceutical company is happy, the doctor is happy, But we are not there to be happy about things because we are earning money out of it. We need to fight bacteria, and ruthlessly so. So save your weapons for the worst. Clinical audit with guidelines and feedback can be a very effective tool. Improvements in antibiotic prescribing can be achieved by participating in clinical audits. So in fact, the main worry these days is, we are all doing pharmacovigilance activities. As and when we go to clinicians, they really don't want to report ADRs. Somehow they take it on them कि यदि ये रिकॉर्ड में आ गया ना, तो इसका मतलब है मेरी वजह से हो गया. भाई हमारा काम है ड्रग प्रेस्क्राइब करना. यदि उसे ADR होता है, it is not any responsibility of the clinician. You don't have to be scared of such kind of activity. Similarly, I want to do an audit in an ICU at some hospital. People generally will not cooperate because they feel that critical appraisal will bring out the bad practices which they are following. So they don't want it. A good clinician who is efficient and wants the critical appraisal from us, he should come forward and tell us, come to my ward, come to my unit, do a critical appraisal of what I am prescribing there and suggest to me the improvements. That is how we can improve. If clinicians are going to be a scared lot all the time because there will be some kind of critical assessment, things are not likely to improve ever. Alright, so lastly, I think I need to convey thanks first to the organizers who have given me an opportunity to be here, and then thanks to all of you for your kind attention. I'll be happy if there are certain comments or questions, but I definitely wish all the clinicians good antibiotic prescribing practices, because if that doesn't happen, and I wish that my wishes come true, because they are the people who would be. So I think I've already taken probably the right time. Okay. So if the organizers permit and there are a few comments or queries, I'll be happy to respond. Yeah, Dr. Hunt, please.
Thank you, Professor Gupta, for this insightful talk on antibiotic audit. My question is that I feel that some initiative has to be taken at the level of antibiotic policy development, because all the time we cannot blame the clinicians. How many medical schools or how many hospitals develop their antibiotic policy? The data is with the microbiology department. There are pharmacologists trained in doing an audit, but there is lack of will.
Yeah.
That is what I believe. The starting point should be to develop the antibiotic policy of any institution, and then that gives them a strand which they can follow. I'm not sure you can.
In fact, here again, I think you have raised a very pertinent point, because that is the starting point. When I said that some kind of standards are to be laid down with which you can compare your practices, that basically is going to be if you have a successful, good running hospital antibiotic policy. But the problem is, I really do not have the date when Government of India started coming out with a hospital antibiotic policy. And the first draft I saw, I don't remember the exact number of years, but it must be at least 7 to 8 years. And I'm not even sure till today it's the truth. First, there has to be a national antibiotic policy, This national antibiotic policy has to be percolated to all the states, to all the government institutions, to all the private institutions, to all the associations like Indian Medical Association or any kind of association, and then the onus comes on the institutional heads that they should ensure that their own hospital, based upon the national data and guidelines, you have your hospital antibiotic policy in place. And in fact, policy is a white document. In fact, we need to have what are known as hospital protocols. I mean, if I am treating a patient in a ICU of emergency and accident department, there is a separate protocol of antibiotics. If I am talking of a respiratory intensive care unit, then the protocol changes. So in fact, we should have a broad policy, and under those policies, the important areas like surgical units, surgical wards, surgical ICUs, RICUs, accident emergency ICUs, they must have what is known as the antibiotic protocols, so that you have some kind of defined standard guideline which you can follow. And if there are guidelines and protocols are well defined, SOPs are written nicely, that what you are going to do, how you are going to do, I think things definitely can improve. So you have a very important point that we all need to formulate policies for ourselves, and we need to be guided by those policies. And if you don't follow those policies, there has to be some kind of accountability. Accountability doesn't mean here that we need to punish the people, but we need to counsel them. We need to advise them. And if somebody is repeatedly doing the same mistake, then probably person can be asked that, okay, you don't stop prescribing antimicrobials. Because we see, I mean, we have done some critical appraisals at my own institute, and I can tell you about gynae and obs department. Well, there is an infection, it's a gram-negative bacilli, they are giving 4 antimicrobials simultaneously, okay, and out of that, 2 are only meant for gram-positive antimicrobials. I mean, what's the fun? You are unnecessarily wasting the drugs, making flora get altered, leading on to superinfections, resistance, and so many other biological complications. And I mean, there are very few situations where you would like to go for polypharmacy as far as antimicrobial is concerned. And more than 97 to 98% of situations, clinically speaking, one effective antimicrobial is what we need. So that's the problem.
Very wonderful talk on the antibiotic use.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta.
I would like to share with you that the concept of essential medicine is going to promote the rational use of antibiotics. Because if we look at the national essential medicine list, before 15, we had, even in WHO, we have the 3 antibiotics, we can say, antibacterials. Leave aside the antitubercular, cotrimoxazole, amoxicillin, clavulanic acid, imipenem, cilastatin. But now, even in National Essential Medicine list, the piperacillin tazobactam has been included. If we look at the pseudomonas, it's an irrational combination. The pseudomonas develop resistance by production of chromosomal beta-lactamase, and this is not inhibited by tazobactam. So whether we use piperacillin alone or we use piperacillin tazobactam, result is one and the same. And addition of tazobactam has increased the cost of therapy dramatically. So we have to make the strict guidelines for selection of essential medicine. Still cotrimoxazole in those who are prescribing rationally antibiotics, it is doing wonders. Thank you.
I think very important point again. I think all of you are well conversant with the term superbugs. When we found that Delhi bug, the extended spectrum beta-lactamase producing E. coli and other organisms. Now the time is, in fact, we have found superbugs, but we have to find out super antibiotics. And in recent times, there is one nice development which I can share with the students specifically here. In fact, like you have versions, that mobile version so and so, software version so and so, we recently have developed version 3 of vancomycin. And there was earlier version was 2 and 1, and now it is said that this vancomycin version 3, it is supposed to be 25,000 times more effective than the vancomycin which was the original version. Okay, and this has been currently labeled as the super antimicrobial. But even if it's a super antimicrobial and we don't use it rationally, the word super will go, and then the word antimicrobial will also go. Right? So I think what we need is our choices, our usage patterns, that is very important. And the youngsters sitting out here, we need people who can go into antibiotic research because very few molecules. And the only problem is, pharmaceutical industry is concerned about benefits, commercial benefit. If I develop a medicine for diabetes which is effective, it's going to earn me money, and it's going to earn me money for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. I develop a good antibiotic with a similar or more amount of cost, which every organism become resistant in 6 months, and then no one is prescribing that antimicrobial. I have not recovered even my costs. That is the reason pharmaceutical industry is not interested in developing antimicrobials. They will develop for hypertension, they will develop for diabetes. And you see, tomorrow the guidelines are changing. We just were discussing with Dr. Handu, the new guidelines on hypertension, alright. As for those hypertensions, most of us will turn out to be hypertensive, alright. And we are likely to be on antihypertensive drugs, which the companies are so happy to formulate and sell, because they will last years and years together. Antimicrobials, they don't get them the benefits, so that's why they are not interested in it. I think I have overshot it my time. Thank you once again, the organizers. Thank you.
Just add a comment, sir.
Yeah, Vandana, yes, please.
There was a